People everywhere are making choices more connected with their values. We are simplifying our lives, buying less, and living more because we know that the earth supplies enough for everyone's need, but not everyone's greed. We conserve water, save energy, and plug into the power of Mother Nature because we realize that when we make connected choices, we not only build better lives for ourselves, we build a better world for everyone. Still, there is one connected choice that often gets overlooked. It's one of the most far-reaching personal, practical, and ethical choices you can make. We are all connected. The choices we make affect not only our lives, but the lives of other people. If we use more than our share, we are taking from other people and from those yet to come. In this day and age, in a world of plenty, it is difficult to understand how, all over the world, nearly 1 billion people are going hungry, and 40,000 will starve to death every single day. This doesn't happen because there isn't enough for everyone. This happens because, while people are starving, we are wasting enormous amounts of grain to feed cows, pigs, chickens, and other animals so that we may satisfy our desire for meat, milk, and eggs. The earth can provide only so much food. While the human population is growing and growing, the tiny amount of land on which we can grow food is not. Because raising animals for food takes so much land, water, and other resources, the earth would be able to sustain only about 2 billion people on a meat and dairy-based diet. With a world population of nearly 7 billion people, it's easy to see that we need to find a better way. Vegan choices support a world where all may be fed. Vegan choices require only a fraction of the land and far fewer resources than what is needed to produce animal products. The equation is simple. The fewer animal products we consume, the more people we can feed. If we ignored this simple fact, more and more people will be going hungry as the world population continues to grow. Vegan choices also promote your own health and the health of others. The #1 killers in the United States, heart disease and cancer, are conclusively linked to consuming animal products. Vegan choices work to make these diseases a rarity and refuse to contribute to their escalating spread around the world as animal-based diets are pushed on other countries and upon the poor. Millions of people, instead of supporting the export of disease and hunger, are taking personal responsibility. They are being the change they want to see in the world. Their vegan choices are prolonging and bettering their own lives, easing the burden on the planet, and making a life-sustaining commitment to future generations. Vegan choices conserve land, water, and energy. The United Nations found that raising animals for human consumption contributes to global warming more than all the planes, cars, and trucks on the planet combined. 40% more. To feed and water farmed animals takes enormous amounts of water. To produce just 1 pound of meat requires on average 2,500 gallons of water. A gallon of cow's milk, 750 gallons of water. By simply making vegan choices, you can save over 1.3 million gallons of water every year. Many of us recycle paper because we want to save trees. But the #1 reason for cutting down trees, including the destruction of the rainforest, is to clear land to grow food for farmed animals. In just 1 year, a vegan saves a full acre of trees, equal to millions of pieces of paper. The billions of animals we raise for food not only use most of our water and eat most of our food, they poop most of it out. In the U.S., farmed animals produce 130 times more excrement than the entire human population, 86,000 pounds per second. Per second! That's enough to rebuild the Denver skyline every 24 hours out of poop. This concentrated slop pollutes our water, destroys our topsoil, and contaminates our air. Our oceans are dying. Industrial fishing has caused a global decline in fish populations to near extinction in most parts of the ocean. Massive nets, miles long, scrape the ocean depths and indiscriminately scoop up and suffocate everyone in their catch. Turtles, seals, dolphins, whales, and billions of struggling fish. And industrial fish and shrimp farms are creating environmental dead zones. Massive amounts of concentrated waste from these factory farms smother the ocean floor and choke the life from it. But it's not too late.
Mr. President, how are you?
Great.
Since leaving office, Bill Clinton has made his own health and the health of the country his top domestic priority. I saw it firsthand when he invited me to Little Rock. Last time we spoke a few weeks ago, you said you were going to be really strict on the diet. You were doing a pretty good job, you say.
Yeah, I'm being more strict now.
Are you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the time I have my 65th birthday, I want to weigh what I did when I went home from law school in 1973.
Wow,
that's what I'm working
That's a grand ambition. President Clinton's diet, no meat, no dairy, almost no oil, got me thinking how different what he's eating now as compared to what he used to eat, and what most of us still eat. Make a habit of high-fat, high-cholesterol meals like this, and you can physically see the beginnings of heart disease. For starters, your blood actually looks different.
So let's start by looking at what healthy blood looks like after it has been centrifuged or spun. You can see there are two components. This bottom layer represents the blood cells, and this top layer represents the plasma. The plasma is a clear yellow layer that contains mostly water and electrolytes.
Here's what happens to your blood if you follow an unhealthy diet. The top layer is white and cloudy. It's just laden with heart-clogging fat and cholesterol.
Type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset. The problem is that the insulin, which is this hormone that acts like a key to let the sugar out of the blood into the muscle cells, where it can power your movements, that insulin key isn't working very well. Starting in 2003, the U.S. government funded my team to test a totally vegan diet. I'm talking about no animal products at all, but it wasn't a low-carb diet at all. People could eat rice and pasta all they wanted, and it worked dramatically well, better than a more conventional diabetes diet. People lost weight, their blood sugars came down, their cholesterols fell, and oddly enough, they found it easier to follow this kind of diet because we didn't make them count calories. They could eat as much as they wanted. Type 1 diabetes used to be called childhood onset. The cells that make insulin are dead. And so if a person already has type 1 diabetes, if you put them on a healthy vegan diet, that will reduce the likelihood of complications. There are researchers who now believe that one of the big triggers for type 1 diabetes is dairy products. It turns out that proteins in cow's milk, the body recognizes them as foreign proteins. The body makes antibodies to destroy them. Those same antibodies then destroy the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas. And there's a major study right now that's nailing down whether, if kids are breastfed and they are not given a cow's milk protein at all during infancy, that we might be able to reduce the risk of type 1 diabetes. The evidence so far says that's exactly right.
You have some easy-to-remember adages about how people can decide what they should or should not eat.
We know what they shouldn't eat. That is oil, dairy, meat, fish, and chicken. What do we want them to eat? We want them to eat all those whole grains for their cereal, bread, and pasta, beans, vegetables, yellow, red, green, and fruit.
Nothing with a mother, nothing with a face. You can imagine the Meat, Egg, and Dairy Associations think that's a terrible idea. A plant-based diet like Dr. Esselstyn's runs up against our meat-loving culture.
Most doctors eat meat because most Americans eat meat. And so if they don't really see for themselves or their own families why it might be a good idea to cut back or even cut meat out of your diet altogether, then they may not be so inclined to recommend it for their patients.
Even doctors who do see the benefits of the Esselstyn diet may not recommend it to patients.
Anybody who's able to do that diet can have dramatic success. The problem is that many people are unable or unwilling to make these changes, and so in my practice, I try to take baby steps, one step at a time.
And Dean Ornish says when it comes to diet, it's not all or nothing.
One of the interesting findings in all of our studies was that the more people changed their diet and lifestyle, the more they improved, in direct proportion.
Animals feel pain just as people do. If you eat animals, you should know what happens to chickens, pigs, cows, sheep, fish, and other animals used for food. Please take a few moments to find out about the routine cruelty involved in raising, transporting, and killing these animals.
The images that you are about to see are not isolated cases. They represent industry standards for animals raised for milk. Animals raised for milk are forced to endure enormous pain and suffering. They have been turned into milk-producing machines. In the year 2007, India produced almost 100 million tons of milk, which is 15% more than the US and 3 times more than China. Like all mammals, animals raised for milk need to become pregnant in order to produce milk. Typically, animals raised for milk are made to give birth to a calf every year, which means they are both lactating and pregnant for at least 7 months a year. Within 3 months of giving birth, a cow is made pregnant again, at times through artificial methods. Artificial insemination is a process by which sperm is collected from the male, processed, stored, and artificially introduced into the female reproductive tract for the purpose of conception. Animals are artificially inseminated by barefoot healers who ignore even minimum standards of care. PETA investigators observed that the artificial insemination guns were rarely sterilized, that syringes and needles were used repeatedly on different animals without being sterilized, and that the barefoot healers shoved their bare, soapy hands into the animals' uteruses, causing the cows immense pain and exposing them to potential infections and diseases. Cows and buffaloes raised for milk in India today are milked over and over using machines which are able to extract more milk than the animals would yield easily. Because workers aren't always paying attention, the machines often continue to run even after the animals' udders are empty, causing them a lot of pain. Buffaloes stand several feet deep in foul-smelling slush. They suffer from skin infections, foot disease, tuberculosis, and other illnesses. Bull calves, who are of no commercial value to the dairy industry, are tied up with ropes so short that they cannot even lift their heads. Very often these calves are sold to slaughterhouses and killed for their skin.
Calves are taken from their mothers shortly after birth. Their mothers often bellow frantically and search for them even after they have been sold for their flesh or skin.
Oxytocin is a Schedule H drug, which means it cannot be bought or sold without a prescription. However, its use in the dairy industry, although illegal, is rampant, as the drug causes cows to produce more milk. Oxytocin causes cows to experience severe stomach cramps similar to labor pains and weakens their bones. Under natural conditions, a cow can live up to 18 years, but cows raised for milk are only about 6 or 7 years old when they are sent to the slaughterhouse to be killed for their meat and skin. The animals are shoed and then roped together in preparation for the harrowing death march, which can last several days. Handlers pull the cattle by ropes through their noses and twist their necks, horns and tails to keep them moving. They lead, or rather force the cattle down embankments and in and out of trucks without ramps, causing the animals injuries such as broken pelvises, legs, ribs and horns. Another way handlers keep the animals moving is by rubbing chili peppers and tobacco into their eyes. As many as half of the animals will already be dead by the time they arrive at the slaughterhouse. The survivors are often killed in full view of each other. And instead of the required quick slice across the throat with a sharp knife, they are generally killed through hacking and sawing with a dull blade. It all comes down to pain and suffering, not intelligence, not strength, not social class or civil right. Pain and suffering are in themselves bad and should be prevented. Say no to that slice of cheese or glass of milk. There are so many nutritious, delicious and cruelty-free recipes available now.
Chickens are the most abused animals on the planet. Those raised for their flesh are packed into filthy sheds, often with thousands of other birds. Fumes from their accumulated waste burn their throats and eyes. Most birds lose their feathers and develop blistering, ulcered feet, and other ailments. They are pushed to grow such unnaturally large upper bodies so fast that their legs often become crippled under their own weight. PETA India has uncovered shocking cruelty to chickens, including their live scalding, starvation, and mutilation of birds. Chickens are intelligent animals who form strong family ties and mourn whenever they lose a loved one. According to scientists, a mother hen will turn her eggs as many as 5 times in an hour and cluck to her chicks while they're still in the shell, and her chicks chirp back. But on egg farms, hens spend their entire lives crammed into wire cages so small that they can't even spread a single wing. Because they can't use them, their muscles waste away and their bones deteriorate. Standing on the wire, their feet become lacerated. The ends of their sensitive beaks are cut off with a hot blade, causing them chronic pain. Some birds starve to death because eating is too painful. They never even see their own babies. At the end of their miserable lives, chickens are grabbed by their frail legs and wings, often causing broken bones, and stuffed inside cages to be transported to the slaughterhouse, where they are slammed upside down into metal shackles and shocked in an electrical water bath. Many escape the electric shock only to have their throats slit and be scalded to death while still conscious in the defeathering tanks. Many chickens are transported to shops where they are tied up together upside down by their legs and then crammed into cages. The terrified birds have their throats slit with burnt knives and are often put into drums full of scalding water while they are still alive.
Don't for 1 minute think that this is an isolated incident. This is how slaves are treated. You don't really think that slaves get treated nicely, do you? You really think white people were nice when they shipped black people over here on ships? You don't think Nazis were nice when they walked Jews and gypsies into the gas chambers, do you? And this happens because you want to buy those products. Yeah, that guy's a scumbag for doing that. But he's doing that because you want to eat what comes out of her body. Animals are being abused. It is not your right, it is not your freedom to do this to them. You don't get to have freedom when somebody else doesn't. That's a violation. In order for a female mammal to give milk, she has to be pregnant. Every year, every cow on every dairy farm is raped. A long steel device shoved in their vaginas to inject them with bull semen, or sometimes they use a bare hand. This forces the milk flow. And after she gives birth, babies are stolen. And let me tell you something, the worst scream I have ever heard, and I've heard them all firsthand. When I started finding out about this stuff, a little over 15 years ago, I was like everybody else. I didn't believe it was that bad. I thought everybody was exaggerating. But unlike everybody else who just blows it aside, brushes it off, I actually went to see what was going on. I spent 6 weeks at Thornapple Valley Pig Slaughterhouse in Detroit in 1993. I broke into animal research laboratories. I broke into fur farms. I went behind the scenes of every circus and every rodeo that ever came through Michigan. Worst scream I've ever heard. a mother cow on a dairy farm, as she screams and bellows her lungs out day after day for her stolen baby to be given back to her. And I can only imagine the same scream every woman in this room would make if somebody held you down after birth and stole your newborn baby from you. And why did they take babies away from their mom? Well, the dairy industry can't have little babies sucking up all that milk that was meant for them when they'd rather sell it to you instead. Every time you have a glass of cow milk, some calf is not. Cows make milk for their babies and for their babies alone. Case is closed forever, permanently. No debate, no discussion. They don't make milk for baby elephants, baby orangutans, baby hedgehogs, baby rabbits, baby rats, baby humans, adolescent humans, or adult humans. This body of ours has absolutely no need for cow milk, like it has absolutely no need for giraffe milk. And zebra milk and rhinoceros milk, hippopotamus milk, camel milk, deer milk, antelope milk, horse milk, pig milk, dog milk, or cat milk. The only milk that we ever need is our own mother's breast milk when we're born. That's it. And when we're done weaning, we never need one drop of milk ever again. No species on this planet needs milk after they're done weaning. But if you want to include some kind of milk in your diet like I do, let me reiterate the good news. Soy milk, rice milk, almond milk, hemp milk, coconut milk, oat milk, hazelnut milk. I want you to know, I don't live in Fantasyland. I'm well aware that animals are suffering and dying just because we're here on the planet with them. We build homes through their habitat. We pollute their environment, destroy their habitat. Is there a reason we have to maximize the suffering and maximize the cruelty and the death that they already endure by eating them on top of it all? You want to talk about pouring salt into somebody else's wound. 98%, and I repeat this stat, 98% of animals who are abused and killed on this planet are abused and killed by the meat, dairy, and egg industries. This is where all the harm is taking place. And in America, from birth until death, each meat eater consumes around 3,000 land animals and thousands of other marine animals. Those are USDA stats. And I seem to think a lot of people eat animals because we've all been told that humans are carnivores, we're omnivores, we're meat eaters, and we're supposed to be doing this. Are you aware that physiologically, the human body is actually 100% herbivorous? Plant eaters. The length of our intestines are somewhere between 7 to 13 times the length of our torso, our trunk. That's the same length of all herbivore animal intestines on this planet. They're very long. But the length of the intestines on real meat eaters, hyenas, coyotes, bears, tigers, and lions, only 3 to 6 times the length of their torso. They have a short intestinal tract so they can push through quickly decaying and rotting animal flesh, animal protein, cholesterol, saturated fat, trans fatty acids, which is why it is impossible, I repeat, impossible for any genuine meat eater to ever clog their arteries. Never happens to a real meat eater. What's the #1 killer of humans who choose to eat meat, cheese, milk, and egg? Heart disease from clogged arteries, atherosclerosis. Humans and other herbivores, we sweat through our pores to cool ourselves. We don't pant like dogs and cats and lions to cool ourselves down. No claws on the human hand. Claws are a trademark of the carnivore and the omnivore. We have carbohydrate digestive enzymes in our saliva. Only herbivores possess that, meaning we're supposed to be eating tons of carbohydrates like fruits and vegetables. Our teeth, broad, short, blunt, flat, just like the teeth of other herbivores. And before somebody blurts out, "Hey Gary, what about these canines, dog?" Most of the herbivores have canines, incisors, and molars. It would not be possible for us to be eating hard fruit like apples without those teeth. Our lower jaw goes from side to side in a grinding, chewing motion like this. We grind and chew when we eat. If you grind and chew when you eat like you all do, you are an herbivore. The jaws of carnivores and omnivores can only go up and down, vertically, rip and swallow. There's no chewing, grinding, side-to-side action. And I'm a fair guy. I mean, if somebody out there truly believes that humans are meat eaters, I'll give you 2 challenges to prove me wrong after class, and please do so if you want. I want you to go outside and locate a squirrel on campus. And when you spot that squirrel, put that carnivore speed into effect that everybody has and chase that squirrel down, pounce on him, and catch him in your mouth. No tools, no weapons, no cages. No one's allowed to be a cheater and a fake carnivore with this challenge. And when you are done killing the squirrel in your mouth, be my guest, eat the squirrel. Eyes, nose, face, toes, tail, anus, inner organs, blood, fur, and don't forget about the brains. You don't get to pick and choose which body parts you want to eat, and you don't get to cook it either. If people want to be real meat eaters, I'd love to see people eat raw flesh from the bone, down to the bone with nothing left but the bones day after day after day. And challenge number 2, find a 2-year-old child. Place the child in a crib. In the crib, put 2 things: a live bunny rabbit and an apple. If the child eats the bunny rabbit and plays with the apple, send me an email, would you? Now, all I'm asking you to do is something normal and natural anyways. Eat what comes from the earth. Every vitamin, mineral, and nutrient that exists, protein, calcium, iron, potassium, all the B vitamins, they have an original source, and it ain't the animals. You are aware that people eat animals after the animals have already eaten from the earth. People eat cows after the cows eat up the grass, some of the soil. Then we ship them to a feedlot, feed them most of our corn, wheat, oats, and soy. Then we take more of the corn, wheat, oats, and soy, shove it down the throats of pigs and chickens and turkeys. Stop filtering your nutrients through somebody else's body. It's illogical and irrational. Go to those sources directly: fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes. These things cannot harm you, cannot cause a disease, and more importantly, they harm no one else in the process. Meat's got 5 components. Let me break it down for you. Blood, flesh, veins, muscles, and tendons. The cut-up corpse of a dismembered body. How does meat not qualify as gross and disgusting to everybody? How in the world is a beverage, a liquid that oozes out of the udders of cows, a secretion that drips from the mammary glands of another being, that's loaded with pus, by the way? Oh yeah, let me tell you about the pus in your cow milk. It'd be my pleasure when you hook machines up to the udders of cows 3 times a day to suck them dry. Those machines cause massive amounts of infections on the inside and outside of the udder. Now let's add all the bovine growth hormone they put in cows to make sure they produce huge quantities of milk, which always leads to another infection. The machine doesn't know what not to suck out. Pus, mucus, and infections right in with your milk, and yeah, milk is pasteurized. But when did pasteurization become a removal process? It's a sanitation process. You're only sanitizing pus. And you want to look this up online. Well, you don't think the dairy industry would ever use the word pus when they write about this problem in their own trade journals. Yeah, they're going to deceive you again with this. Look up the scientific term for pus: somatic cell count. And by the way, our government, the USDA, they allow the dairy industry to have a maximum amount of 1 eyedropper full of pus in every glass of milk. Does anybody know what an egg actually is from a hen? And don't say embryo or aborted fetus, not even close. It's unfertilized, so it can't be either. Hen is a female, though. Unfertilized egg through a female system. It's part of her menstruation cycle. It's a hen's period. People scramble up hen periods in the morning, and all of a sudden I'm weird because I don't make omelets anymore. And what about vomit? Oh, we're going to take those blinders off today. Come on, you guys love vomit. You adore it all over your food. Better give this one a pretty name, though. No one's going to buy and eat vomit. Unless we call it honey instead. Honey comes directly from a bee's stomach. It is regurgitated right through a bee's mouth. Look it up with any wildlife biologist. But nobody wants to eat bee vomit nut Cheerios. We want honey nut Cheerios. So tired of ourselves to play euphemism games. The standard diet of a meat eater is blood, flesh, veins, muscles, tendons, cow secretions, hen periods, and bee vomit. And people think vegans are weird because we eat tofu and rice and beans and lentils.
How can it be that 95% of Americans feel it is wrong to unnecessarily hurt and kill helpless animals, yet 95% of Americans continue to unnecessarily hurt and kill helpless animals so they can eat them? Why the disconnection? It's time to connect. When you make vegan choices, you stand up for the meekest among us, those who rely entirely on your ability to show compassion. You stand up for farmed animals and refuse to pay anyone to harm them on your behalf. You stand up for the millions of wild animals who are displaced and brutally killed to make room for farmed animals and profits. And you help rebuild the wildlands they call home. Most of us have had the opportunity to get to know an animal. When you get to know them, you quickly find out that they each have their own personalities, their own quirks, their own ways. You can tell when they're happy, or sad, or scared, and sometimes we forget that this is true for all animals. And most of us have felt the unconditional love of an animal, that deep bond that seems to go beyond our human connections. We talk to our dogs and to our cats, and sometimes we connect with them more deeply than with anyone else. They love us, and we love them. You can feel that connection again and again by giving your love to every animal, those we call our pets, wild animals, and those who suffer on farms and in factory farms. Make vegan choices to align with your true love for animals. Expand your circle of compassion, and the love will come back to you 1,000 times. Vegan. Every day you are invited to make choices. Live your values, change the world.